Welcome to Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service today is called Cultivating Compassion, Opening to Others. So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello. Excellent. I'm the Reverend Dr. Susanna Trilligator. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the minister of this congregation. Welcome to church this morning on this beautiful holiday weekend, which at least in Melrose is called Indigenous Peoples Day. Hooray for Melrose. And thank you for coming. Our church is a vibrant, caring community dedicated to love and service. If you're joining us for the first time, we have a greeter here to answer any questions you might have. That person always wears a yellow stole. Today, it's Mary Beth Griscom, and she is right there waving to everybody. You can talk to her in coffee hour or anytime if you need help or have questions. Our usher today is Liz Folzer, who's also out in the hall, and our coffee hour hosts are Martha and Barbara. Thank you so much, especially to Barbara, who's also our RE teacher this morning. Thanks, everybody. Without you, we couldn't do this. I have just a few announcements before we get started. The Fellowship Committee is hosting Circle Suppers again this year on the evening of November 1st. They're going to have a special early one for people who are going to the Melrose Symphony that night, so don't worry, that doesn't cancel you out. Eric will be walking around coffee hour today taking sign up, so see Eric in coffee hour. Eric, you want to raise your hand? There he is, in case you want to sign up for Circle Suppers. These are small group suppers in people's homes to get to know one another. Our big Harvest Fair event, it's a big event. It's coming on November 8th. There'll be a table today in coffee hour where you can find out more and see how you can volunteer. Next Saturday is a big day. It is the second No Kings Day. If you want to connect with our pro-democracy team to find out how you can stand with them locally in Wakefield or in downtown Boston later in the day, connect with them in coffee hour. They'll have a table today. And there's also going to be some information in the midweek update this week about that. Also next Saturday is our church Halloween party. This is a party for all ages. Everyone is welcome. We're inviting the community this year, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're the kind of person who likes to wear a costume or you like to bake baked goods, we could use your help and support. Please contact the RE leaders for the details. Next Sunday in worship here, we'll be honoring Banned Books Month here in worship, and we'll actually have a book communion for the first time, so that'll be fun. Today in Parish Hall, you'll notice that our DRE Rhea has made a display on one of the bulletin boards asking you, what is your favorite banned book? And they have actually put a list of 1,000 banned books next to the display, so you can look through the list, take a moment to answer the question with a sticky note, and put it up there. And remember, next week, that's October 19th, we'd love you to bring in a book so that one that you want to bless and give forward to some other lucky reader as part of our book communion. On to today's service. If you point your phone toward the screen right now, your camera should pick this up. This is a QR code to our online order of service. If you feel the need to follow along online, you can do that, or you can just let me take you from time to time to place to place. So now is the time to greet one another. Turn to your neighbor, say, welcome to worship. Thanks for coming. Good to see you. For our call to worship this morning, I have a piece of prose about compassion from Mark Nepo, who is a contemporary poet and spiritual writer, from his book, The Exquisite Risk. He writes, "My soul tells me we are all broken from the same nameless heart, and every little living thing wakes with a piece of that original heart aching its way into blossom. This is why we know each other below our strangeness, why when we fall, we lift each other, or when in pain, we hold each other, why when sudden with joy, we dance together. Life is the many pieces of that great heart loving itself back together." Now we light the symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. Here to light it for us this morning is longtime member and one of the tri-captains of our anti-racism team, Beth Yergrow.
I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join me in our MUUC vision. The words are up on the screen. Envision a dynamic faith community that nourishes our liberal religious values of love, reason, conscience, and action. We foster lives of integrity, joy, and service to each other, to Melrose and neighboring communities, and to the world.
Is that challenge still lit?
Oh, you are right.
There we go. The wick is really low.
Good work.
Thanks, Kathy. Now would you please remain standing and join in our opening hymn, which is number 6 in the gray hymnal, Just As Long As I Have Breath. The words will also appear up here on the screen. Thank you. You may be seated. Hey there, everybody. Rhea has this Sunday off, so I will be reading a story this morning. I don't know if you guys want to look at the book. The pictures will all be up there, but I do have the book if you want to have a look. Anybody? Okie doke. Our book is called Enemy Pie. It's written by Derek Munson and illustrated by Tara Callahan King. It should have been a perfect summer. My dad helped me build a treehouse in our backyard. My sister was at camp for 3 whole weeks, and I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been a perfect summer, but it wasn't. It was all good until Jeremy Ross moved into the neighborhood, right next door to my best friend Stanley. I did not like Jeremy Ross. He laughed at me when he struck me out in a baseball game. He had a party on his trampoline, and I wasn't even invited, but my best friend Stanley was. Jeremy Ross was the one and only person on my enemy list. I never even had an enemy list until he moved into the neighborhood. But as soon as he came along, I needed one. I hung it up in my treehouse where Jeremy Ross was not allowed to go. Dad understood stuff like enemies. He told me that when he was my age, he had enemies too. But he knew of a way to get rid of them. I asked him to tell me how. Tell you how? I'll show you how, he said. He pulled a really old recipe book off the kitchen shelf. There was a worn-out scrap of paper with faded writing on it. Dad held it up and squinted at it. Enemy pie, he said, satisfied. You may be wondering what exactly is in enemy pie. I was wondering too. But Dad said the recipe was so secret, he couldn't even tell me. I decided it must be magic. I begged him to tell me something, anything. I will tell you this, he said. Enemy pie is the fastest known way to get rid of enemies. Now, of course, this got my mind working. What kind of things, disgusting things, would I put into a pie for an enemy? Well, I brought Dad some weeds from the garden, but he just shook his head. I brought him earthworms and rocks, but he didn't think he would need those. I gave him the gum I'd been chewing all morning, and he gave it right back to me. I went out to play alone. Oh, wait a minute. I went out to play alone. I shot baskets until the ball got stuck on the roof. I threw a boomerang that never came back to me. And all the while, I listened to the sounds of my dad chopping and stirring and blending the ingredients of enemy pie. This could be a great summer after all. Enemy pie was going to be awful. I like to imagine how horrible it must smell, or worse yet, what it would look like. But when I was in the backyard looking for ladybugs, I smelled something really, really good coming from the kitchen. I was a bit confused. I went in to ask Dad what was wrong. Enemy pie shouldn't smell this good. But Dad was smart. If enemy pie smelled bad, your enemy would never eat it, he said. I could tell he had made enemy pie before. The buzzer rang, and Dad put on the oven mitts and pulled the pie out in the oven. It looked like a plain old pie. It looked good enough to eat. I was catching on. But still, I wasn't really sure how this enemy pie worked. What exactly did it do to enemies? Maybe it made their hair fall out, or gave them bad breath. Maybe it made bullies cry. I asked Dad, but he was no help. He wouldn't tell me a thing. But while the pie cooled, he filled me in on my job. He talked quietly. There is one part of enemy pie that I can't do. In order for it to work, you need to spend a day with your enemy. Even worse, you have to be nice to them. It's not easy, but it's the only way that enemy pie can work. Are you sure you want to go through with this? It sounded horrible. It was scary. But it was worth a try. All I had to do was spend one day with Jeremy Ross. Then he'd be out of my hair for the rest of my life. I rode my bike to his house and knocked on the door. When Jeremy opened the door, he seemed surprised. He stood on the other side of the screen door and just looked at me, waiting for me to say something. I was nervous. "Can you play?" I said. He looked confused. "I'll go ask my mom." He came back with his shoes in his hand. His mom walked around the corner to say hello. "You boys stay out of trouble," she said, smiling. We rode bikes for a while and played on the trampoline. Then we made some water balloons and threw them at the neighbor girls, but we missed. Jeremy's mom made us lunch. After lunch, we went over to my house. It was strange, but I was kind of having fun with my enemy. He almost seemed nice. But of course, I couldn't tell Dad that since he had worked so hard to make this enemy pie. Jeremy Ross liked my basketball hoop. He said he wished he had a basketball hoop, but they didn't have room for one. I let him win a game, just to be nice. Jeremy Ross knows how to throw a boomerang. He threw it, and it came right back to him. I threw it, and it went over my house and into the backyard. When we climbed over the fence to find it, the first thing Jeremy noticed was my treehouse. My treehouse was my treehouse. I was the boss. If my sister wanted in, I didn't have to let her. If my dad wanted in, I didn't have to let him. And if Jeremy wanted in, "Can we go up in it?" he asked. I knew he was going to ask me that. But he was the top person, the only person on my enemy list, and enemies aren't allowed in my treehouse. But he did teach me how to throw a boomerang, and he did have me over for lunch, and he did let me play on his trampoline. He wasn't being a very good enemy. "Okay," I said, "but hold on a minute." I climbed up ahead of him and tore the enemy list off the wall. I had a checkerboard game and some cards in my treehouse, and we played games until my dad called us down for dinner. We pretended we didn't hear him, and when he came out to get us, we tried to hide from him. But somehow he found us. Dad made us macaroni and cheese for dinner, my favorite. It was Jeremy's favorite too. Maybe Jeremy Ross wasn't so bad after all. I was beginning to think that maybe we should just forget about enemy pie. But sure enough, after dinner, Dad brought out the pie. I watched as he cut the pie into 8 thick slices. "Dad," I said, "it sure is nice having a new friend in the neighborhood." I was trying to get his attention and trying to tell him that Jeremy Ross was no longer my enemy, but Dad only smiled and nodded. I think he thought I was just pretending. Dad dished up 3 plates side by side with big pieces of pie and giant scoops of ice cream. He passed one to me and one to Jeremy. "Wow," Jeremy said, looking at the pie. "My dad never makes pies like this." It was at this point that I panicked. I didn't want Jeremy to eat enemy pie. He was my friend. I couldn't let him eat it. "Jeremy, don't eat it. It's bad pie. I think it's poisonous or something." Jeremy's fork stopped just before reaching his mouth. He crumpled his eyebrows and looked at me funny. I felt relieved. I had saved his life. I was a hero. "If it's so bad," Jeremy asked, "then why has your dad already eaten half of it?" I turned to look at my dad. Sure enough, he was eating enemy pie. "Good stuff," he mumbled through a mouthful. And that was all he said. I sat there watching him eat enemy pie for a few seconds. Dad was laughing. Jeremy was happily eating. And neither of them was losing any hair. It seemed safe enough, so I took a tiny taste. Enemy pie was delicious. After dessert, Jeremy rode his bike home, but not before inviting me over to play on his trampoline in the morning. He said he would teach me how to flip. As for enemy pie, I still don't know how to make it. I still wonder if enemies really hate it, or if their hair falls out, or if their breath turns bad, but I don't know if I ever get an answer. I don't know if I'll ever get an answer because I just lost my best enemy. The end. Thank you for your good listening. If you want to talk about your enemies and how you feel about them, you can go on down to class now with Barbara and Jane. Thank you for your good listening. Every Sunday in the center of our service, we create together a time of quiet meditation, time for each of us to connect once again with our inner selves, our highest ideals, our own individual sense of the holy. We begin that time together by closing our eyes and breathing deeply, feeling our bodies settle into our seats, feeling our feet connecting to the floor and the good earth beneath it, breathing. During this meditation time, first we'll join in our centering song, and then we'll sit for a time of shared quiet. Then we will share our joys and sorrows, and I will lead us in a prayer. Our worship theme for October is Cultivating Compassion, and our centering song for the month is number 1031 in the Teal hymnal, May You Be Filled with Loving Kindness. Please remain seated and join in the song as you like, letting it guide you gently into our time of shared quiet. It's our tradition here every Sunday to share with one another the joys and sorrows of our lives, our personal milestones. We listen to one another with deep respect and caring so that this sharing can help us get to know one another better and make us a stronger community. I invite anyone who has a sorrow to share this morning to come forward and speak from the microphone. People on Zoom can go ahead and type a sorrow into the chat box and I will read it aloud. So, Liz, I'm going to ask you to light the other candle, please. For all the joys that were shared this morning and all the ones that are in our hearts today, let the candle be a reminder to us to feel and express our thanks for all the many blessings in our lives. If you would, please join me in the spirit of prayer as you feel comfortable. I offer this prayer that was written by the UU minister, Reverend Richard Gilbert. He was the guy who invented the process of voting for social justice ministry teams, but this prayer isn't about that. It's about compassion. Be gentle with another. It is a cry from the lives of people battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there of hope and hurt, of promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care. For there are human beings within, human beings as vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring. It is lasting enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another. Amen.
Our church is self-funded, supported by your generous annual pledge. You may also give to our weekly collection, which we split every month with a worthy group via our Giving Beyond Our Walls program. Remote folks can donate using the link at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. For October, we've chosen the charity Unite Against Book Bans as our giving partner for several reasons. First, October 5 through 11 is Banned Books Week. Second, for our multi-gen worship service on October 19th, we will dive deep into the issue of censorship and the freedom to read. Plus, we'll have a book communion. Bring a book to bless and give. In accordance, this group provides tools and strategies to fight book banning nationwide. Our anthem today is by Andrew Brune, and it's called Kindness and Love.
Kind
Recently, I was watching a video that was recommended to me by a minister friend called the Modern Buddhist Podcast. In it, a man was interviewing a young Buddhist nun who sounded American. Her name was Gen Demo. The episode is called Why Compassion is the Ultimate Life Hack. She tells this powerful story. One day she was unwell and waiting for help in an emergency room. She had been put in a bed, and there were curtains on both sides of her, but it was open in the front. She could see across the way another woman in another bed, just writhing in pain, begging for them to tend to her. But they were running around busy. It was chaotic and very loud, as ERs generally are. Many people were angry, demanding, and in pain. Suddenly, there was a loud commotion right on the other side of the curtain. It was clear an ambulance had just come in with a small child in it. Gen says, quote, "And you can also hear the parents like screaming at the staff to save her, please save her. And they're working really hard to save this child who'd gone into cardiac arrest for a long time, and they couldn't save her." But what struck me in that moment, the entire ER went quiet. Like there had been so much noise from the patients until that point. But in that moment, because we could all hear what was happening, we all knew it was a child. Everyone went quiet and everything went still. And I was just struck by, I think everyone was just so moved by what had happened. It was impossible to not have this huge compassion going to that family and to the doctors and the nurses trying to save this child. But what blew me away was after they called it, they said we can't save her, and the family is completely distraught, was that I looked at the woman in front of me, and she'd become still. And I became aware of myself, and I was like, I didn't feel any pain anymore. There was no pain. And when I was looking at the woman in front of me, I thought, I don't think she's in pain either. Something that shocked me in that situation was that all the staff that had been going through this and trying to save this child, they immediately leave and have to tend to us, like they just have to go back to work. And so this one male nurse, he comes out to the woman in front of me because she had been one of the most desperate people needing help. So he went straight to her, to start helping her. And she looked at him and she said, "It's okay, I'm fine. Take a minute." Like she showed him compassion, and you could tell he was all teary. And so he did. He just stepped out into the hallway and took a moment. And to me, it just showed me the incredible healing power of compassion, because what had changed from 10 minutes before? It was just our compassion. Like we had all gotten into our minds this very intense compassion and the very manifest suffering of the child and the staff and the parents. And in that moment, there wasn't pain manifest like we were in before. I realized this was the healing power of compassion. It was without a doubt reducing our pain. And it wasn't just me. Everyone seemed to have that reduction in pain just by virtue of being deeply and genuinely moved by someone else's suffering and recognizing it was far greater than our own, unquote. So what exactly is compassion, and how is it different from pity or empathy? Rabbi Esther L. Adler has a helpful definition. She says, "There is a hierarchy of responses when we encounter suffering. Pity says, I see your pain. Sympathy says, I understand your pain. Empathy says, I feel your pain. Compassion says, I am with you in your pain and I will help." Compassion is about witnessing suffering eye to eye as an equal, fellow human, and then doing what you can to alleviate that suffering. It is both feeling and action. In Gen Demo's story, the medical staff shows great compassion, of course, but the patients feel it too, and it has actual physical effects on them. Research is now validating that observation. Studies show that engaging in compassionate acts has a measurable impact on cardiovascular health. Even observing other people doing compassionate acts has that effect. Kindness can lower your blood pressure and reduce chronic inflammation. Both of these are linked to better heart health. Beyond the physical effects, studies show that developing a practice of compassion can improve your mental health too. Regular small acts of compassion or regular practice of loving kindness meditation, like in our centering song today, can reduce your stress, anxiety, and depression. Of course, compassion is also good for humanity, but it's very good for you too, your body and your mind. The Dalai Lama once summed it all up by saying, "If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion." He also said, "Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive." In that same video interview, the young Buddhist nun, Gendemo, offers another powerful story. Quote, "So many years ago, I used to do caregiving work, and there was a young man who had broken his neck and needed kind of full-time care, and I was one of many people who cared for him, and his mother was also. She was one of his main caregivers. And I remember being so moved by the fact that she took such immaculate care of herself for her son. She was so disciplined at, resting and eating well and getting the right staffing so she could take care of herself, not just physically, but also mentally. She was conscientious about doing meditation and artistic things and maintaining her personal health so that she could show up for him, happy. I never knew a day when I was there that she didn't walk into his room in the morning, happy to see him. She never seemed overwhelmed and tired. She always had things she wanted to show him or talk to him about and keep him engaged with life. And I thought all of these efforts to take good care of herself were actually for him." He lived like that as a quadriplegic for, I think, maybe 12 or 13 years, and then he passed away. And she was healthy all of that time. And then the week after he passed away, I was on the phone with her, and she said she had a cold. And she said, "It's the first time I've been sick, in like 13 years. To me, Gen said, it showed the power of self-care and its relationship to compassion." Unquote. I like this story because it shows us what we need if we are in it for the long haul. We need to focus, pick a lane and stay in it, and then take exquisite care of ourselves so that we can show up in that lane as our best selves. If we try to go to every event, every protest, everything here at church, we get exhausted and we show up grumpy. And we're not really helping anyone. But if we focus and rest, we can lift each other up as this woman did for her son. She beamed her energy onto him, showed him that life was beautiful and worth living. And so he lived. It's a beautiful example, I think, of, that example of in a turbulent airplane, putting on your own oxygen mask first so you can help others. In this day and age, when our culture is so divided and negative, it's so important for us each to show up when we can as our best selves, as our most rested, most grounded, most loving selves, because that's where the healing happens. Which brings me to compassion for our enemies. When Rhea and I were talking about this service earlier this week, and I suggested this book, Enemy Pie, Rhea said, "I like it. It's funny and everything, and it makes a good point, but I think it needs some nuance. It needs some discussion." "What do you mean?" I said. Rhea said, "Well, the kids are always asking me, do I have to love Donald Trump? And you could read that book as saying, you have to get to know him. You have to have him over to play on your trampoline." And I don't think that's true, said Rhea. I tell the kids, you can love him, but you don't have to like him. which is a great point, you know. When it comes to abusers or people who trigger our own reactivity, it's healthy to keep them at a safe distance where they can't cause any more harm. You, as a person, don't have to feel obligated to love up close all the people on this earth. At the same time, I think it's important to practice holding complex, even paradoxical feelings at the same time. You can be angry or even hate someone who has hurt you and still cultivate compassion for them as part of your own healing. To heal yourself, compassion is a powerful tool. Remember the story of the Good Samaritan? Remember that Samaritans were the enemies of the Jewish people. Jesus chose one to be the hero of his parable. Why? It would be like me today teaching a story where the hero is an undocumented immigrant, or maybe a MAGA Republican. To humanize our opponents, to give them not only flesh, but honorable attributes, it calls us all to a higher level of consciousness. Gandhi and MLK strove not only to overcome, but to make their enemies into friends. They both taught the power of love, which they proved is far more effective in the long run, and even in the short run, than hate. As a practice, I do try to cultivate compassion for my political opponents. I can imagine why they might feel disappointed, hurt, even angry. I can imagine and understand that. And when I allow it, I can feel that under the anger, maybe, for all of us, there is a sense of powerlessness, which is scary, and maybe also a sense of deep grief. Grief for our world, for all that we've lost, for the crises that we're in, grief over what we stand to lose in the future. Under the anger is grief, and under the grief is love. A love for our country and the world that we share. When we reach out from that place of love, we can heal ourselves and even each other. And we can encounter our opponents in a much more effective way. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there of hope and hurt, or promise and pain, writes Richard Gilbert in the prayer we heard today. He says, our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. I think Mark Nepo said it even better in the words for our call to worship this morning. My soul tells me that we are all broken from the same nameless heart, and every living thing wakes with a piece of that original heart, aching its way into blossom. This is why we know each other below our strangeness, why when we fall, we lift each other, or when in pain, we hold each other, why when sudden with joy, we dance together. Life is the many pieces of that great heart loving itself back together. May we too be part of this great movement of love, sewing us all back together. Amen. Please rise, if you will, in body or in spirit for our closing hymn. This is My Song, which is number 159 in the gray hymnal. The words will appear here on the screen, and our choir will help us out. Please remain standing and repeat with me the chalice extinguishing words. Excuse me just a second. Oh, okay. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together. Our worship has ended for the day. Thank you so much for joining and taking time for us to be together. Thank you to the people joining us on Zoom. And please, after a brief postlude from Tom, feel free to join us for refreshments in Parish Hall, which is the big room that way. Thank you again, and happy Sunday.